Okay, we've looked at the navigator and the view map and how to set views up. Now we're going to look at specifically the attributes. So where view settings will establish how the views vary from one to the next, how a single viewpoint can build multiple views. Um, the attributes determine how individual elements appear within ArchiCAD with default settings. So looking at the options menu, where the documents menu includes all of those various view settings within the view map, the options menu includes all of the attributes. We'll start by taking a look at the attribute manager here. In ArchiCAD 26, you will eventually see that there's an attribute manager's palette, but we're going to look at the attribute manager itself. Oops, I got those backwards. Um, right here under attribute manager, we can get to the default attribute manager. So we've already gone through layers and pens. The layer combinations being a view setting, the pen sets being a view setting, the layers being an attribute, the pens being an attribute. We also have line types, fill types, surfaces, building materials, composites, complex profiles, zone categories. We also have a few others in here, MEP systems and operation profiles that we're not going to worry about for the training purposes. So the first type of attribute is the line types. Every element that has a vector assigned to it, whether it's a 3D element with edges or a 2D element drafted, floor plan views, elevation views, all of those are vectors, and they all have line type controls. So line types are not just a drafting element. They're also the reason, as we can see here in the background, that these beams show up dashed here, because they were assigned a dashed line overhead line type. Same with the fills, same with all of these other various attributes. Surfaces, for example, are the uncut appearances within 3D. The building materials are the cut appearances within any floor plan section or cut view. The composites are buildups of those building materials, as are the custom profiles. So the important thing looking at the attribute manager here is that these attributes have a number. That number is what defines that attribute as being used. These beams, for example, are set to dashed because in the beam settings, it recognizes that attribute number 4 has been assigned. If I wanted to, I can very easily rename that attribute type, and it has no impact whatsoever on the use of that attribute because it's being assigned sort of within the background of ArchiCAD as attribute number 4. Because of that, if I were to delete attribute number 4 from this list, and even if I recreated it with the exact settings or exported it and re-imported it, it's going to come in with the highest available attribute. So here it's going to come in as attribute number 91. And it'll show as a missing attribute within any element setting that was using it. So we do have to manage our attributes very, very carefully so that we're not getting a whole bunch of missing content within the model. Surfaces in particular show up as big red flags. If surface images are missing, they show up kind of checkered. If the surface attribute number is missing, it may show up as like a mauve or even a black surface. So managing those attribute numbers is really critical. We can technically re-index attributes, so if we inadvertently delete an attribute and it shows up missing, we can look for those gaps and create new attributes and re-index them to fill the gaps. Looking here, for example, there's a big gap between 77 and 86. The check mark in the attribute manager indicates which attributes are being used. So the fact that none of these attributes are actively being used in the project means that there's probably nothing in that gap that would be missing.